The sky over Seoul burned red that morning. Hana Lee stood on the rooftop of the military command center, watching streaks of fire rain down from orbit. Each streak was a human ship dying. Each flash of light meant hundreds of her fellow soldiers were gone forever. She gripped her rifle tighter, knowing it would be useless against what was coming. The aliens had appeared 3 days ago, 12 different species working together, calling themselves the Galactic Dominion. Their ships had blocked out the sun over every major city on Earth. Their message had been simple and cold. Surrender in 72 hours or watch your world burn. Earth had chosen to fight. Admiral Jiho Park had led the defense fleet into space. 200 ships, the best humanity had ever built. Hana had watched the launch from this very rooftop, feeling pride swell in her chest. The Admiral was a legend, a hero from the Mars colony wars. If anyone could save Earth, it was him. That hope died in the first hour of battle. The Dominion weapons tore through human shields like they were made of paper. Their plasma cannons melted steel and flesh with equal ease. Jiho's fleet lasted barely long enough to fire a single volley before half of it was destroyed. The Admiral himself went down with his flagship, sending one final message to Earth. "I'm sorry. We weren't ready. We never had a chance." Now the aliens were coming down. Hana's radio crackled to life. Her squad leader's voice was tense. "All units fall back to secondary positions. Orbital bombardment incoming on all primary targets." She looked around at the city she had grown up in. The towers of glass and steel, the streets full of people who had no idea their world was ending. Most of them couldn't even see what was happening in space. The first beam struck downtown, a column of white light that turned buildings into vapor. The shockwave knocked Hana off her feet. Her ears rang. When she could see again, a crater half a mile wide sat where millions of people had been living just seconds before. Then the second beam hit. And the third, and the fourth. Seoul was dying. Across the city, Dae-hyun Choi huddled in the basement of his apartment building with 300 other people. The power was out. The only light came from phones and emergency lamps. A child was crying somewhere in the darkness. Someone was praying. Dae-hyun pressed his hands over his ears, trying to block out the sounds of the city being destroyed above them. He was an engineer, not a soldier. He built things, fixed things. He had spent his whole life making the world better. Now he could only hide and hope the ceiling didn't collapse on his head. The building shook. Dust rained down from the cracks spreading across the concrete above them. A woman screamed. A man shouted for everyone to stay calm, but his voice was shaking too. Dae-hyun closed his eyes and thought about his parents in Busan. He wondered if they were still alive. He wondered if anyone would be alive by tomorrow. The aliens came down in massive landing ships. They deployed soldiers by the thousands. Hana and what remained of her unit tried to hold a defensive line at the old palace grounds. The aliens moved like nothing she had ever seen. Some walked on 4 legs with armored shells. Others flew on mechanical wings. The ones leading the ground assault looked almost human, but with gray skin and eyes that glowed red. Her captain screamed orders. "Fire! Fire everything!" Hana squeezed the trigger. Her rifle kicked against her shoulder. The bullets hit an alien soldier in the chest. They bounced off its armor like raindrops. The creature turned its weapon toward her position. She dove behind cover as the wall behind her exploded into flames. One by one, her squad fell. The captain went first, his body cut in half by a plasma blade. Then Sergeant Kim, shot through the head while trying to pull a wounded soldier to safety. Then the rookies, the kids who had joined up just 6 months ago thinking they would see the stars someday. Hana ran. She wasn't proud of it, but staying meant dying for nothing. She ran through streets filled with panicking civilians. She ran past burning cars and collapsed buildings. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out. She found herself in an old subway tunnel. The emergency lights were still working. She could hear water dripping somewhere in the darkness. She could also hear footsteps above. The heavy mechanical footsteps of alien soldiers patrolling the streets. By the 3rd day, the fighting was over. General after general had surrendered. City after city had fallen. The aliens had barely tried. They had weapons humanity couldn't match and numbers that seemed endless. Every time Earth's forces gathered for a counterattack, the aliens simply bombed them from orbit. The Dominion's leader appeared on every screen on Earth. His name was Velthar, and he looked like a massive reptile wearing armor. His voice was translated by machines into every human language. Humans of Earth, your resistance is over. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is inferior. Your military is destroyed. You will surrender unconditionally, or we will exterminate every living thing on this planet. In Geneva, what was left of Earth's government signed the documents. Hana watched the broadcast on a stolen phone in the subway tunnel. She watched as her president, her leaders, her heroes bowed their heads and accepted defeat. She wanted to scream. She wanted to smash the phone against the wall. Instead, she just sat there in the dark and cried. The Dominion soldiers began rounding up survivors. Daehyun was pulled from his basement shelter along with everyone else. They were marched through the ruined streets to a processing center the aliens had set up in what used to be a sports stadium. Thousands of humans stood in lines, waiting to be registered, tagged, and assigned to work details. An alien officer walked along the lines, studying the humans like they were animals. It stopped in front of an old man who could barely stand. The officer said something in its language. A human translator already working for the aliens spoke up. He is too old to work. Remove him. Two alien soldiers grabbed the old man and dragged him away. A woman, maybe his wife, screamed and tried to follow. She was beaten down with the butt of a plasma rifle. Nobody else moved. Nobody else said anything. They had learned in 3 days what it meant to lose. Far away in the frozen wastes of Antarctica, Sunmi Kang stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The research station had been abandoned when the invasion started. Everyone else had fled north, hoping to reach family or friends before the end. Sunmi had stayed behind, not because she was brave, but because she had nowhere else to go. She had been going through classified files, trying to understand what had happened. That's when she found it, a file marked Project New Dawn, a deep space colony mission that had launched 5 years ago. A ship carrying 50,000 people to a distant star system. A ship that nobody outside the military was supposed to know about. The last communication from the ship was dated 6 months before the invasion. They had reached their destination. They had found a habitable world. They were beginning construction of a colony. Sunmi sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of the Dominion, humans were still free. Humans who didn't know their homeworld had fallen. Humans who would come home someday and find Earth in chains. She began to write a message, encoding it in ways she hoped the aliens wouldn't detect. She sent it out into the void on every frequency she could access. Earth has fallen. We need help. Please come home. Then she waited. Above the planet, Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue world below. Another primitive species conquered. Another world added to the Dominion. In a few years, they would strip this planet of everything useful, relocate the humans to labor colonies, and terraform it into something more profitable. He barely remembered their name already. Humans, just another species that had learned the universe, belonged to the strong. 5 years passed like a slow death. Hana Lee had forgotten what real food tasted like. The Dominion gave humans just enough nutrition paste to keep them working, just enough water to keep them alive, nothing more. She had also forgotten what it felt like to sleep without nightmares. Every night she saw her squad dying again. Every morning she woke up wishing she had died with them. But she hadn't died. She had survived, and survival meant purpose. The resistance was small, scattered, and hunted. They operated from the ruins of old cities, from abandoned tunnels, from forgotten places the aliens didn't care about. Hana had found them 6 months after the invasion, or maybe they had found her. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they were still fighting. She crouched in the shadows of what used to be Tokyo, watching an alien patrol pass by. 3 soldiers walking down a street that had once been full of life. Now it was empty except for the propaganda screens the Dominion had installed everywhere. The screen showed images of happy humans working in Dominion facilities. They showed alien leaders speaking about peace and prosperity. They never showed the mass graves. They never showed the ships leaving Earth every week, packed with humans being sent to mining colonies on distant worlds. Hana's radio clicked twice. The signal. She moved like a ghost, crossing the street and sliding into position behind the patrol. 2 other resistance fighters emerged from different shadows. They moved as one, years of practice making them deadly. Knives flashed in the dim light. The aliens died without making a sound. They took the weapons and disappeared before anyone could find the bodies. Every gun mattered. Every plasma rifle stolen was one less pointed at a human. It wasn't much, but it was something. Across the city, Minho Bai sat in a hidden room beneath a destroyed hospital, studying stolen Dominion data files. He was the one who had organized the Tokyo Resistance Cell. Before the invasion, he had been a soldier. Now he was something else. A hunter, a terrorist, a freedom fighter. The words didn't matter anymore. "We hit another supply convoy last night," said Ji-won Han, entering the room quietly. She looked tired. Everyone looked tired these days. Ji-won had been a diplomat before the war, someone who believed in peace and negotiation. The invasion had taught her that some problems couldn't be solved with words. "How many weapons?" Minho asked without looking up. 50 plasma rifles, ammunition, and some explosives. Ji-won sat down across from him. "We also got something else. Data chips from the convoy's command vehicle." Minho finally looked at her. "What kind of data?" "The kind that says they're planning to terraform Earth." Ji-won's voice was flat, emotionless. She had learned not to show feelings. Feelings were dangerous in a world where the aliens could read human expressions. They want to change our atmosphere to suit their biology. The process would kill every human not in sealed facilities. Minho's hands clenched into fists. "When?" 2 years. Maybe less. They sat in silence for a moment. 2 years to save billions of people. 2 years to somehow defeat an empire that controlled thousands of worlds. It was impossible. But impossible was all they had left. Far away in a Dominion technology center in what used to be Beijing, Daehyun Choi repaired an alien computer system. His hands moved automatically, connecting wires and calibrating sensors. He had become good at this, too good. The aliens had noticed his skills and decided he was useful enough to keep alive. He hated himself for it. Every day he fixed their machines. He was helping them. Every system he repaired was used to control more humans, to hunt more resistance fighters, to strip more resources from Earth. But if he refused, they would kill him and find someone else. So he worked, and he hated every moment of it. But Daehyun had a secret. Every system he fixed, he also sabotaged, not in obvious ways. The aliens weren't stupid. He made tiny changes. A line of code here, a slightly misaligned circuit there, things that would work fine for months or even years, but would fail at just the wrong moment. He planted backdoors into security systems. He created weaknesses in communication networks. He had been doing it for 3 years now, and so far nobody had noticed. He didn't know if it would matter. He didn't know if anyone would ever use the vulnerabilities he was creating. But it was something. It was his small way of fighting back. An alien supervisor approached his workstation. It spoke in broken human language. "This unit, status?" "Almost finished," Daehyun replied, keeping his eyes down. "Never look them in the eyes. Never show defiance. Stay useful, stay alive. It will be ready in an hour." The alien made a clicking sound that might have been approval and walked away. Daehyun returned to his work, adding another tiny flaw to the system that nobody would find until it was too late. In Antarctica, Sunmi Kang had been alone for 5 years. The Dominion had found her research station eventually, but they had decided it wasn't worth the effort to occupy. Too remote, too cold, too useless. They had destroyed the main communication equipment and left. They thought they had isolated her completely. They were wrong. Sunmi had spent 5 years rebuilding communication systems from spare parts and stolen equipment. She had spent 5 years scanning deep space, searching for any sign of the colony ship, and 3 months ago she had finally gotten a response. The message was brief and encrypted. New Dawn colony established. Population growing. Received your message. Analyzing situation. Will respond. That had been 3 months ago. Since then, nothing. Sunmi had almost given up hope when the second message arrived. It was longer this time, and it changed everything. We have ships. We have weapons. We have been building. We are coming home. Sunmi read the message 17 times to make sure she understood it correctly. The colony hadn't just survived. They had thrived. They had found alien technology in their new system, ancient derelicts from a dead civilization. They had studied it, improved it, combined it with human engineering. And now they were building a fleet. She immediately began encoding the message to send to the resistance networks. It took her 4 days to break through the Dominion's communication blocks. When she finally succeeded, she sent 3 words to every resistance cell on Earth. Hope is coming. The message spread like fire through the underground networks. Hana received it in Tokyo. Minho received it in his hidden bunker. Daehyun saw it on a hacked terminal in Beijing. Across Earth, resistance fighters who had been losing hope for 5 years suddenly had a reason to keep fighting. Jiwon took the biggest risk. She had been working as a translator in the Dominion Administrative Center, pretending to be a loyal collaborator. It gave her access to alien communication systems and security protocols. When she saw Sunmi's message, she knew what she had to do. She began stealing everything. Defense grid codes, ship schedules, patrol routes, weapon specifications, everything that could help when the fleet arrived. She copied it onto hidden data chips and smuggled them out piece by piece. Every day she went to work expecting to be caught. Every night she went home surprised to still be alive. The aliens never suspected her. They thought humans were beaten, broken, tamed. They didn't understand that humans could smile and bow and work efficiently while plotting revenge every single moment. Belthar stood in his command center, reviewing reports from across Earth. Production was up. Human workers were efficient. The terraforming equipment would arrive on schedule. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Earth would become a Dominion world, and these humans would be relocated to labor colonies where they belonged. One of his officers approached. "Commander, there have been increased resistance activities in several cities." Belthar barely looked up. "How many casualties?" 17 of our soldiers in the past month. Acceptable losses." Belthar dismissed the report with a wave of his clawed hand. "The humans are desperate and dying. Let them have their small victories." "It changes nothing," the officer hesitated. "There is one more thing. Long-range sensors detected unusual activity at the edge of the system. It may be space debris," Belthar interrupted, "or sensor errors. This system is full of human satellites and junk. Stop wasting my time with irrelevant data." The officer bowed and left. Belthar returned to his reports, already forgetting the conversation. He had no way of knowing that the debris his sensors had detected were ships. Human ships. Ships unlike anything the Dominion had ever encountered. Ships that were even now entering the outer solar system, running silent and dark. Ships coming home to a world in chains. Sunmi sent one more message to the colony fleet. It contained everything the Resistance had gathered over 5 years. Every weakness in the Dominion's defenses. Every schedule, every code, every piece of information that might help. She included a personal note at the end. "They think they broke us. They think we're tame. Show them what humans really are. Show them what happens when you take everything from someone who has nothing left to lose." She hit send and sat back in her chair. Outside, the Antarctic wind howled across the frozen wasteland. Inside, Sunmi smiled for the first time in 5 years. The long night was almost over. The real war was about to begin. The Galactic Council chamber was a massive structure of crystal and metal that floated in orbit above the Dominion capital world. 12 species sat in a circle, each representing one of the founding members of the Dominion. They had gathered to discuss the expansion of their empire. Council Speaker Tharzon was ancient even by his species' standards. He had lived for 3,000 years and had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. To him, the younger species of the galaxy were like children. Sometimes they needed guidance. Sometimes they needed discipline. Sometimes they needed to be removed for their own good and the good of others. "The next target systems have been identified," announced one of the military representatives. 3 systems with primitive civilizations. Resources are abundant. Resistance will be minimal." Tharzon listened with half his attention. These meetings were routine. The Dominion had been expanding for centuries. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. It was simply what advanced civilizations did. They brought order to chaos. They gave purpose to primitive species through labor and service. "What about the recent acquisitions?" asked another council member. "The planet called Earth?" "Earth is pacified," Belthar responded via hologram from his command ship in orbit over the conquered world. "Human productivity meets expectations. Minor insurgent activity continues, but it's manageable. We lose a few soldiers each month, but nothing significant. And the terraforming project? On schedule. Equipment will arrive in 23 months. We will relocate the remaining human population to mining colonies in the outer sectors. Earth will be converted to a Vextar colony world within 5 years." Tharzon nodded. It was all very standard. Another successful conquest. Another primitive species put to productive use. Any other concerns regarding Earth? None, Council Speaker. The meeting moved on to other topics. Trade routes, resource allocation, political disputes between member species. Earth was mentioned only in passing, one item among hundreds on the agenda. The humans were conquered, broken, and controlled. They were no longer relevant. But one voice spoke up. Intelligence Officer Kex, a junior analyst who rarely spoke during council sessions, raised a tentacle hesitantly. Council Speaker, there is one irregularity regarding the Earth system. Tharzan's ancient eyes focused on the young officer. Speak. Long-range sensors have detected anomalous readings at the edge of the Earth system. Multiple contacts moving in formation. The signature is unusual, not consistent with known space debris or natural phenomena. Velthar's image flickered with what might have been annoyance. We have investigated those sensor readings repeatedly. There is nothing there. The human satellites and space junk create false readings. It is irrelevant. With respect, Commander, Kex continued nervously. The patterns are too regular to be random. The contacts maintain formation. They appear to be under intelligent control. Are you suggesting, Veltar said slowly, that the humans who we defeated in 3 days 6 years ago have somehow built a fleet in deep space that we didn't detect? When said aloud, it did sound absurd. Kex lowered his tentacles in submission. No, Commander. You are correct. It must be sensor errors. Focus on real threats, Tharzan commanded, not shadows and ghosts. This meeting is concluded. The council members dispersed, returning to their ships and homeworlds. Kex remained at his station, staring at the sensor data. Something was wrong. He could feel it. But he was too junior, too inexperienced to push further. He filed another report that nobody would read and tried to ignore the growing sense of dread. On Earth, 6 months before the fleet would arrive, the Resistance knew they had to act. Every piece of sabotage, every stolen weapon, every weakness they could create in the Dominion defenses needed to be ready. The aliens had to be off balance when the attack came. Hana stood in front of 40 Resistance fighters in the ruins beneath Tokyo. They were all that remained of what had once been hundreds. Some were former soldiers like her. Others were civilians who had lost everything and wanted revenge. All of them knew they would probably die before seeing Earth free. We have 6 months, Hana said quietly. 6 months to make them hurt. 6 months to make them weak. When our people come back, we need to make sure they have a chance. How? Asked one of the younger fighters. They have ships in orbit. They have weapons we can't match. What can we do? Everything. Hana's voice was cold. We hit their supply lines. We sabotage their equipment. We make them afraid to walk our streets at night. We remind them that this is our world, not theirs. Minho stepped forward. I've made contact with resistance cells in 15 cities. We're coordinating simultaneous strikes. We're going to hit them everywhere at once. They'll have to spread their forces then. Jiwan was there too, though it was dangerous for her to be seen with the resistance. If the aliens found out she was a spy, they would kill her slowly. I have the access codes for the orbital defense platforms. When the time comes, we can shut them down, at least for a few minutes. A few minutes might be all we need, Hana said. She looked at each face in the room. These people had survived 6 years of hell. They deserve to see freedom. Everyone knows their targets. Everyone knows the risks. Does anyone want to back out? Nobody moved. Good. Let's make them regret ever coming to Earth. The Resistance began their campaign of sabotage. Supply convoys were ambushed with increasing frequency. Dominion facilities experienced mysterious equipment failures. Soldiers on patrol disappeared without a trace. It was nothing the aliens couldn't handle, but it was constant, irritating, and spreading. Daehyun received coded messages through resistance networks. They needed him to do something bigger than his usual subtle sabotage. They needed him to plant a virus in the main communication system, something that would activate when they gave the signal. It was dangerous. If he was caught, he would be executed. But if he didn't do it, the resistance would fail. He spent 3 weeks carefully building the virus. It had to be invisible to alien security systems, but devastating when activated. It had to spread through their network without being detected. He tested it 100 times on isolated systems. When he was finally satisfied, he uploaded it into the main communication hub during a routine maintenance check. His hands shook the entire time. An alien supervisor walked past his station twice. Daehyun forced himself to breathe normally, to act like he was just doing his job. When the upload was complete, He closed the access panel and moved on to another task. The virus was in place, waiting. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept expecting alien soldiers to break down his door. He kept expecting to be dragged away for interrogation. But morning came and nothing happened. The virus was hidden, dormant, and ready. Sunmi continued coordinating communications between the Resistance and the incoming fleet. The fleet was now 3 months away. They had sent her their battle plans, encrypted in codes that would take the Dominion years to break. She studied the plans carefully. What she saw both terrified and amazed her. The humans coming home were not the same species that had been defeated 6 years ago. They had spent every moment since then building weapons, training soldiers, and preparing for war. They had learned from the Dominion's technology and improved it. They had created ships designed for one purpose: revenge. The fleet's commander, Admiral Yunji Song, sent a personal message. "Tell the people on Earth we haven't forgotten them. Tell them we're coming. Tell them that anyone who hurt our world will pay for it." Sunmi broadcast the message through resistance networks. It spread across Earth like electricity. People who had given up hope suddenly believed again. Workers in Dominion facilities moved a little slower. Resistance fighters struck a little harder. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Belthar noticed the change in the humans. They seemed less cooperative, more defiant. Production had decreased slightly. Small acts of sabotage were increasing. He ordered more patrols and stricter discipline. When a human worker was caught sabotaging equipment, Belthar had him executed publicly as an example. It didn't help. If anything, the resistance grew stronger. One day, Belthar decided to inspect a human labor camp personally. He wanted to understand why these primitive creatures kept resisting when they had clearly lost. He walked through the camps, looking at the thin, tired faces. He saw humans who should have been broken, but something in their eyes bothered him. They weren't broken. They were waiting. He stopped in front of a human woman who was being brought in for questioning about resistance activities. She was a scientist, apparently. Someone named Sunmi Kang, who had been found transmitting illegal messages from Antarctica. The soldiers had brought her to the main facility for interrogation. Belthar looked down at her. She was small, weak, and completely at his mercy. "You have been communicating with resistance elements," he said. "Tell me who they are, and your death will be quick." Sunmi looked up at him. She should have been terrified. She should have been begging for mercy. Instead, she smiled slightly. It was the smile of someone who knew something he didn't. Then she leaned forward and whispered 7 words. "You conquered Earth?" The way she said it made Belthar pause. It wasn't a question exactly. It was something else. A promise, a threat, a certainty that made no sense. He stared at her, and for the first time since arriving at Earth, he felt a tiny flicker of doubt. "Take her to detention," he ordered. Standard interrogation. As the guards dragged her away, Sunmi was still smiling. Belthar tried to dismiss the encounter, but her words stayed with him. "You conquered Earth." Why had she said it like that? What did she know? He returned to his flagship and checked the sensor reports again. The anomalous readings were still there at the edge of the system. Still maintaining formation, still approaching very slowly. He ordered a probe sent to investigate. The probe would take 6 weeks to reach the edge of the system. By then it would be too late. In the darkness between stars, the human fleet moved closer. 200 warships, each one built for killing. Each one carrying soldiers who had trained every day for 6 years. Each one commanded by officers who had lost Earth and would die before losing it again. Admiral Yunji Song stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the image of Earth on the main screen. She could see the alien ships in orbit. She could see the scars on the planet's surface. She thought about the billions of humans suffering under occupation. "All ships," she said quietly. "Battle stations. We're going home." The Dominion garrison detected them at dawn. Alert signals screamed through every alien facility on Earth and in orbit. Massive energy signatures had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Ships, hundreds of them, moving fast, moving toward Earth. Belthar was pulled from sleep by the emergency alarms. He rushed to his command center, still pulling on his armor. "Report. Unknown fleet entering the system," his tactical officer announced. 200 contacts. Military configuration. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel in attack formation. "Human designs?" Belthar asked. "Unknown, Commander. The signatures don't match anything in our database. They're using technology we don't recognize." Velthar felt his blood run cold. The humans, the impossible primitive humans, they had come back. He had been warned. Kex had tried to tell him, but he hadn't believed. How could he have believed? Deploy all orbital defense platforms, he ordered. Scramble every fighter. Get me reinforcements from the nearest Dominion world. Reinforcements will take 3 weeks to arrive, Commander. Then we hold for 3 weeks. Velthar's claws gripped his command chair. They defeated us once with surprise and numbers, but we are prepared now. We will crush them again. But even as he spoke, something happened that he hadn't expected. Every orbital defense platform suddenly went offline, just stopped working. The humans hadn't even fired a shot yet, and half his defenses were already gone. What happened? Velthar roared. Unknown, Commander. Systems are reporting massive failures across all platforms. It's like someone sabotaged them. Deep below the surface, G1 pressed the button that sent the access codes she had stolen. Across Earth and a dozen hidden locations, resistance fighters activated the backdoors that Daehyun had spent 3 years creating. Communication systems went haywire. Weapon systems locked up. Security doors opened in facilities that should have been sealed. The Dominion's perfect control over Earth shattered in seconds. Hana heard the explosions starting above ground. She grabbed her stolen plasma rifle and looked at her squad. That's the signal. Everyone move. Hit them now while they're confused. Across Tokyo, resistance fighters emerged from hiding like ghosts. They had been preparing for this moment for 6 years. They knew every alien patrol route. They knew every weak point in every facility. They knew where the aliens stored their weapons and where they kept their vehicles. The uprising began in every city simultaneously. In the sky above Earth, the human fleet arrived like an avalanche. Admiral Yoonji Song stood on her bridge, watching the planet that had been stolen from humanity. She thought about the billions who had suffered. She thought about the children who had grown up in chains. She thought about the old world that the aliens had broken. All ships, she said quietly, open fire. The first volley destroyed the Dominion flagship's entire escort wing. 20 alien warships simply ceased to exist, vaporized by weapons the Dominion had never encountered. The humans weren't using standard plasma cannons. They had built something new, something worse. Velthar watched his fleet die on the tactical display. Ships that had taken years to build were gone in seconds. His officers were shouting reports, but he couldn't process them. This was impossible. The humans had been primitive. They had been defeated. How had they become this? Return fire, he screamed. Destroy them! The Dominion fleet fought back. But they were already off balance, already damaged by the sabotage, already outnumbered. For every human ship they destroyed, the humans destroyed 5 of theirs. And the humans kept coming. The human ships used tactics that no sane species would attempt. Kamikaze drones packed with explosives, relativistic kinetic strikes that turned asteroids into planet killers. They even released biological weapons specifically designed to kill Dominion species, but leave humans unharmed. Where did they learn this? Velthar's tactical officer asked in horror. Where did they learn to fight like this? From us, Velthar said quietly. We taught them. On Earth, Hana and her squad stormed the main occupation headquarters in Geneva. The building was chaos. Alien soldiers were running everywhere, trying to respond to 1,000 threats at once. Some were trying to reach their ships. Others were trying to restore communications. None of them were ready for humans who had been waiting 6 years for this moment. Hana shot an alien officer in the back as he tried to barricade a door. She stepped over his body and moved deeper into the building. She could hear gunfire echoing through the halls. She could smell smoke and blood. She had been fighting for 6 years, and now, finally, she was winning. They found a group of alien soldiers trying to execute human prisoners before retreating. Hana didn't give them the chance. Her plasma rifle cut through them like they were nothing. The prisoners, thin and beaten, stared at her in disbelief. You're free, she said. Find weapons. Fight back. One of the prisoners, an old man who could barely stand, looked at her with tears in his eyes. Is it true? Are we winning? Hana looked through a window at the sky. She could see human ships battling alien vessels overhead. She could see alien craft falling in flames. Yes, she said. We're winning. In Beijing, Daehyun watched the Dominion Technology Center burn. The aliens who had forced him to work for them were dead or fleeing. The human workers were smashing equipment, destroying everything the aliens had built. Someone handed Daehyun a plasma rifle. Can you use this? they asked. Daehyun looked at the weapon. He thought about 6 years of forced labor, 6 years of helping his enemies, 6 years of hating himself. He took the rifle. Yes, he said. I can use it. The Dominion soldiers tried to surrender when they realized they were losing. They broadcast offers to release all prisoners. They offered to leave Earth immediately. They offered technology and resources and peace. Admiral Yoonji Song received their transmissions. She listened to their pleas. She thought about the massacres during the invasion. She thought about the labor camps. She thought about the humans shipped off-world to die in alien mines. She thought about 6 years of suffering. No, she said simply. No quarter. No prisoners. No mercy. The message went out to every human ship and every resistance cell. The Dominion had shown humanity what kind of universe they lived in. The Dominion had taught humanity that mercy was weakness. Now humanity would be a very good student. Sunmi, released from detention when the resistance overran the facility, sat in her old research station in Antarctica. She had access to Dominion communication systems now. She began broadcasting to every Dominion world in range. She showed them the footage she had collected over 6 years. The executions, the experiments, the casual cruelty. You wanted to know what humanity learned from you? She transmitted. We learned that predators don't show mercy. We learned that the strong take what they want. We learned that the universe respects only violence. Thank you for the lesson. Then she showed them what was happening to the Dominion forces at Earth. She showed them their soldiers being hunted through the streets. She showed them their ships burning in orbit. She showed them what happened when you hurt humans badly enough that they stopped being civilized. The broadcasts spread through Dominion space. Species who had thought humans were primitive and defeated suddenly saw something else. They saw a species that had been broken and had rebuilt itself into something terrible. They saw what humans looked like when mercy was no longer an option. On his dying flagship, Velthar made one last transmission to the Dominion Council. Earth was a mistake, he said. We should have exterminated them when we had the chance. We tried to enslave them. We thought we could break them. We were wrong. They don't break. They adapt. They learn. They become. His ship's hull was breaching. He could hear the screams of his crew as human boarding parties cut through the corridors. He could see his fleet scattered and burning on the tactical display. He had conquered hundreds of worlds for the Dominion. He had defeated countless enemies. And here, at Earth, he would die. The door to his command center exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through, weapons ready. They moved with perfect precision, trained by 6 years of waiting for this moment. At their head was a woman with cold eyes and a plasma rifle. Hana looked at Velthar. She remembered watching Sol burn. She remembered her squad dying. She remembered 6 years of hiding and fighting and surviving. She raised her weapon. Remember Earth, she said. She pulled the trigger. In orbit, the last Dominion ships attempted to flee. The human fleet pursued them ruthlessly. Not a single alien vessel escaped the system. Admiral Yoonji gave the order herself. No survivors. No witnesses who would report that the Dominion had been merciful. Only witnesses who would report that humanity showed the same mercy the Dominion had shown them. None. By the end of the day, the Battle of Earth was over. The Dominion occupation force was destroyed. Every alien soldier was dead. Every alien facility was captured or burning. The sky over Earth was clear for the first time in 6 years. Humans poured into the streets of every city. They climbed from hiding places they had lived in for years. They emerged from labor camps and detention centers. They looked up at the sky and saw human ships, not alien ones. Some laughed. Some cried. Most just stood in silence, barely believing it was real. Hana sat on the steps of the ruined Geneva headquarters, her rifle across her knees. Minho found her there. He sat down beside her without saying anything. They watched the sun set over a city full of humans who were finally free. Is it over? Minho asked quietly. Here, Hana said, but the Dominion has thousands of worlds. They still have our people in their labor camps. This is just the beginning. Minho looked at her. You want to keep fighting? Hana stood up. She looked at the human fleet in orbit. She thought about all the other worlds where humans suffered as slaves. They came to our home, she said. They took everything from us. Now we take everything from them. Admiral Yoonji transmitted new orders to the fleet. Set course for the nearest Dominion colony. We're not stopping until every human is free. The ships turned away from Earth and jumped to faster than light speed. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning. 3 weeks after Earth's liberation, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Council Speaker Tharzone had lived for 3,000 years, and in all that time, he had never seen his fellow council members look afraid. They were some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They commanded fleets that had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had destroyed civilizations that had threatened the Dominion's expansion, and now they were afraid of a species they had defeated in 3 days just 6 years ago. The entire occupation force is gone, reported the military commander. 2,000 ships, 50,000 soldiers, complete annihilation. Not a single vessel escaped to report what happened. How is that possible? Demanded one of the council members. The humans were primitive. Their technology was inferior. Tharzone said quietly. 6 years ago. What are they now? The military commander brought up a holographic display. It showed footage from automated monitoring systems at Earth. Everyone watched in silence as human ships tore through Dominion defenses like they were made of paper. They watched weapons that shouldn't exist. They watched tactics that no civilized species would use. They've been building, the commander said. They found ancient technology in their colony system. They combined it with their own engineering. They spent 6 years doing nothing but preparing for war. Every human in that colony was born or trained for one purpose: revenge. Then we destroy their colony, another council member said. We send the full fleet. We exterminate them completely this time. They're not at their colony anymore, the commander replied. They're here. In our space? The hologram changed to show tactical reports from a dozen Dominion worlds. On each one, the same story. Human ships appearing without warning. Human attacks on military installations. Human forces that fought with a savagery the Dominion had never encountered. They're not trying to hold territory, the commander explained. They're hitting our worlds and leaving. They're destroying our infrastructure. They're freeing human slaves and recruiting them. With every attack, their fleet grows larger. How many humans have they freed? Tharzone asked. At last count, 3 million. Those humans are being armed and trained. They're becoming soldiers. Every world we've taken humans from is now a potential target. One of the more aggressive council members slammed an appendage on the table. This is unacceptable. We defeated them. They surrendered. They are conquered. Are they? Tharzone asked quietly. Tell me, when did we conquer them? When we destroyed their fleet? When their government surrendered? When we occupied their world? He looked around the table. Or did we just make them angry? Intelligence Officer Keck stepped forward hesitantly. He had been the one who tried to warn them about the sensor readings. Nobody had listened then. Council Speaker, I have analyzed the human attacks. There is a pattern. They are specifically targeting worlds where we hold human prisoners. They are also targeting our most important military installations. They are trying to cripple us, can they? Tharzone asked. Kex hesitated. If they continue at this rate, and if they keep recruiting freed humans, their fleet could match ours within a year. Maybe less. Their technology is advancing rapidly. They learn from every battle. They adapt faster than any species I've studied. Then we strike now, the aggressive council member insisted. We commit everything. We hunt them down before they become stronger. And how do we find them? The military commander asked. They don't hold territory. They strike and disappear. They use hit-and-run tactics. We could chase them for years and never catch them. The council chamber fell silent. These were beings who had built an empire across thousands of worlds. They had crushed countless rebellions. They had defeated enemies far more powerful than the humans. But now, for the first time in centuries, they didn't know what to do. A transmission request came through. The source was unknown, but it was broadcasting on all Dominion frequencies. Tharzone hesitated, then accepted it. A hologram appeared above the council table. It was a human woman in military uniform. Her eyes were hard. Her voice was calm. My name is Admiral Yunji Song. I command the human fleet. I am transmitting this message to all Dominion worlds so everyone can hear our terms. You presume to make demands, one of the council members started to say. Yunji continued as if she hadn't heard. 6 years ago you came to Earth. You killed billions of our people. You enslaved the survivors. You took our world and treated us like animals. You taught us that the universe respects only strength, that mercy is weakness, that the strong take what they want from the weak. Thank you for the lesson. The hologram changed to show footage from the battle at Earth, then footage from the other worlds humans had attacked. The Council watched their own forces being destroyed. They watched their soldiers dying. They watched humans fighting with a fury that seemed endless. We have taken your lesson to heart, Yunji said. We are no longer the species you defeated. We are what you made us. We are predators now. We are hunters. And we will not stop until every human you have taken is free. This is madness, a council member whispered. They cannot win. We control thousands of worlds. You have 72 hours, Yunji said. Her voice was cold. The same time you gave us to surrender. Here are our terms. Complete withdrawal from 12 systems that you stole from younger species. Return all human prisoners to Earth. Provide full technological and material reparations. Surrender all officers involved in Earth's occupation for trial, and grant humanity a permanent seat on your council. Impossible, several council members shouted at once. You have 72 hours, Yunji repeated. After that, we stop attacking military targets. We start attacking your civilian populations. We will show you the same mercy you showed our civilians. We will teach you what it feels like to watch your cities burn. We will make you understand what you did to us. The hologram showed footage from Earth. The massacres. The camps. The casual cruelty. Everything Sunmi had broadcast. Then it showed human ships in orbit over a Dominion colony world. We are orbiting one of your worlds right now, Yunji said. 3 billion of your people live here. Families, children, civilians who never hurt anyone. In 72 hours, if you do not accept our terms, they will all die. Just like our families died. Just like our children died. You're bluffing, a council member said. Humans don't kill civilians. You're a civilized species. Yunji's smile was terrible. We were civilized. 6 years ago. You destroyed that civilization. You killed the people who believed in mercy and peace and negotiation. The only humans left are the ones who learned your lessons. The ones who understand that the universe doesn't care about morality. It cares about power. We will not negotiate with terrorists, the aggressive council member roared. Then 3 billion of your people will die, Yunji said calmly. And then we will move to another world. And another. We will keep killing until you give us what we want. Or until we are all dead. Either way you lose, the transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to call Yunji's bluff. Tharzan sat in silence, listening to species who had never known fear discover what it felt like. Finally, he raised a hand. The argument stopped. Kex, he said. Tell me honestly. Can we win a war with the humans? Kex looked around at the council members. Nobody else wanted to hear what he had to say. But the speaker had asked. No, council speaker. Not a war of extermination. They have nothing left to lose. We have thousands of worlds to defend. They can attack anywhere. We cannot be everywhere. And with every world we lose, they grow stronger. With every human they free, their fleet grows. They are fighting for survival. We are fighting to maintain territory. They will always be more desperate, always more willing to sacrifice, always more dangerous. What if we commit our entire military? Another council member asked. All our resources? Then other species will see our weakness, Kex replied. The races we have conquered will rebel. The neutral species will see an opportunity. The Dominion could collapse entirely. Tharzan looked at the display showing the human fleet orbiting the Dominion colony world. He thought about 3 billion people who would die if he made the wrong choice. He thought about the thousands of worlds that would burn if this war continued. He thought about the empire he had spent centuries building. We accept their terms, he said quietly. The council chamber exploded. We cannot. This is surrender. We will look weak. We are weak. Tharzan's voice cut through the chaos. For the first time in his 3,000 years, he felt old. We made a mistake. We tried to conquer a species we didn't understand. We thought we could break them. We were wrong. And now we pay the price for that mistake. What about our reputation? Someone asked. What about our power? Our reputation? Tharzan looked at each council member. By now, every species in the galaxy has seen what the humans did to us. They saw a primitive species we conquered rise up and destroy us. Our reputation is already gone. All we can do now is minimize the damage. He stood up slowly. Send our acceptance to the human admiral. All terms. Full compliance. And add one more thing. A message to all Dominion worlds and all species in the galaxy. What message? Kex asked. Tharzan looked at the image of Earth on the display, a small blue world that had nearly destroyed an empire. Let it be known across all space. Humanity is not to be subjugated. They are not prey. They are not slaves. They are predators who remember every injury. Any species that attacks them does so at risk of extinction. The message went out across the galaxy. Within hours, the Dominion accepted all of humanity's terms. Within days, the withdrawal began. Within weeks, every human prisoner was returned to Earth. 50 years later, the galaxy was different. The Dominion still existed, but it was not the empire it had been. The human species had forced it to adopt new laws. No species could conquer another. No species could be enslaved. Disputes would be mediated by a council that now included humans. The Dominion races served in junior positions, their military permanently limited. They had learned the price of creating a predator species. Hana Lee, now old and gray, stood in the rebuilt United Nations building on Earth. A memorial wall listed 9 billion names. The people who died when the Dominion came. She ran her fingers over the names of her squad. The people she had fought beside. The people she had failed to save. Minho stood beside her. They were both veterans now, both survivors. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. Hana thought about the war. She thought about the Dominion worlds they had threatened. She thought about the billions who had died on both sides. She thought about what humanity had become. I don't know, she said honestly. We won, we saved our people. But we lost something too. We lost who we were. Maybe we had to, Minho said, to survive. Admiral Yunji, now an old woman, gave a speech to the gathered survivors. We were a peaceful species once, she said. We believed in exploration and cooperation and hope. The Dominion took that from us. They taught us that the universe is cruel, that only the strong survive, that mercy is a luxury we couldn't afford. She looked around at the faces of the people who had lived through hell and come out the other side. We saved our species. We freed our people. We made sure no one would ever do to us what was done to Earth. But we paid a price for that safety. We became what we had to become. We became predators. She gestured to the memorial wall. Let these names remind us. Let them remind us of who we were. Let them remind us that we must never forget our humanity, even when we have to set it aside to survive. In space, human warships stood watch over Earth. Massive vessels with weapons that could destroy worlds. They would be there forever, protecting their home. No species would ever threaten Earth again. The humans had made sure of it. On every ship, every station, every colony, the same words were inscribed in a dozen languages. A reminder, a warning, a promise. You conquered Earth. And below those words, in smaller letters, Earth remembers. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was no longer a species to be conquered or controlled. They were a species that had been pushed too far and had pushed back with everything they had. They were a species that had learned that sometimes survival means becoming something terrible. The Dominion had wanted to teach humanity about the universe. They had wanted to show them that the strong ruled and the weak served. They had succeeded. Humanity had learned that lesson perfectly, and now the galaxy would live with the consequences forever. Sunmi Kang, working in a research lab on Earth, received a message from a distant star system. A newly discovered species, primitive but promising. They were asking if they should attempt contact with the Dominion. Sunmi wrote back carefully. No, come to Earth instead. We will help you. We will protect you. We remember what it's like to face the Dominion alone. No species should have to go through what we did. And so humanity became what it had always wanted to be in the beginning. Explorers, protectors, teachers. But now they were explorers with warships, protectors with weapons that could crack planets, teachers who had learned the hardest lessons the universe could provide. The Dominion had conquered Earth, but Earth had conquered itself, forged itself into something new in the fires of rage and survival. And that new species would make sure that what happened to them would never happen to anyone else, not on their watch, never again.